final assembly. If you've watched all that and made it through this, you've made it to the end. Congratulations. One of the few. And if you've gotten frustrated, trust me, totally normal. So what we're going to do now is put together the final product. We've done our pump, we've done our drums, we've done our valve body, we've done our case prep, we've done our bushings. We've made sure everything's clean, and we have all the replacement parts necessary to complete the job. And at the end, when you turn the key, I get the feeling couldn't sledgehammer a sewing needle through your you know what. So one thing, I work in a different way than most. I want to get as many parts that can go in and make room for myself. So it doesn't exactly matter how you do this. What I do want to kind of start with though is the wiring harness itself. Your wiring harness typically will not go bad. It's a very good piece. It's a simple wiring harness. What will go bad is the TCC solenoid itself. Probably the most common failure with the 60. I have multiple videos on that. But if you have an 1870 code, easiest first thing to look at. So, and you can usually buy an aftermarket one. No need to buy a $100 harness, just clip and snip it. This harness is only held in by a simple green O-ring, despite what most people think. If you push your harness down, stop being a gorilla. Be gentle. It's only held in by an O-ring. Let me just repeat that, okay? It's not attached to anything else. All right, so there's your wiring harness hole. You simply put a little tiny grease around it. It is an O-ring, remember. And the orientation is going to be flat side towards the valve body. You want to give a firm push and you'll feel it seat. Then I just like to hang it off to the side. It's out of the way, simple, clean, to the point. And now we'll move up to the top. All right, so we're going to assemble the bottom end. This requires a decent amount of inspection, but typically isn't a failure point unless you're pushing power, or sometimes just bad things happen. Now when I say we need to look, observe your gear teeth, make sure there's no dirt, debris, chunks taken out, nothing ground up, etc. Your journal for your bushing, nice and smooth. And what we're going to do is finally install this. Set this in. You're going to use one of your two black type looking bearings. The black side does go down. And you don't need a ton. You can soak your bearings and all that. And you should have a very, very good bushing job like so. It should spin with minimal effort for basically ever. So after a good bushing job, we're going to move on to the rear planet. Now the rear planet is, if you have a problem with it, you're going to have a hell of a noise and you're going to know it. Anything with the bottom end, you're going to know. You want to wiggle these pinions if you are reusing. Make sure they do not rock back and forth. They should have a tiny bit of up and down play, which is normal. Do all four, make sure they spin. Check your bearing in there. It is going to be loose. That's how it's designed. And once you've done that and verified everything's kosher, we put our bearing on here. A little bit of grease so it doesn't fall off. And a little bit of oil. Simply grab the center, shake and wiggle, and there should be minimal noise. You may hear it have a little, it is metal on metal, it will be a little metallic-y, but you'll know if you've done something very wrong. At this point in time, we layer in our low reverse clutches. These usually last forever, unless you have a serious issue. You get many, many, many years, many, many, many miles out of these. And there is telltales. What we want to do is lay in our wave plate. This slot here is the one you want to pay attention to. So a little tip, there is a notch, and that notch goes into that slot with the wide part against the part hull. So, same principle as forward. Reverse is virtually the same. Wave plate steel, clutch. And there are 5 steels, 1 wave plate, and the top plate is actually the low roller. So we're doing the same principle. stack it like a sandwich. Just let them fall. Nothing is forced. And I'd like to point out, fancy red clutches in reverse are literally useless. So, we are ending right there with that clutch. The next piece is that little case saver that protects those lugs I was talking about. Or you can use your stock spring clip, whichever your preference. If you have access to a case saver, I would use it. And that just sits in there like that. Nothing really holds it there. It will make a little chattery noise on startup, but eventually it will go away. The low roller sprag, heavy duty piece, capable of well over 1,000 horsepower. You will not have a problem out of this unit unless you are doing something extremely stupid, like neutral dropping, or if you have a serious driveline issue. This is what could blow up. I actually got a call the other day. Not many people know this, and this one's doing it. Okay, good. One guy pushed his car yesterday, and he noticed a squeaking noise, but he didn't notice it when it was running or coasting. If there is no vehicle on and you are pushing your vehicle for whatever reason, and you hear, or if you're building and you hear, that is perfectly normal. Every low roller you pick up will do that. Even brand spanking new ones. We're looking for this wide notch here. That's for the machine part of the lug. Everything has a place. We're just going to put our index fingers under that. We're going to drop it. 2 fingers in the rear planet, twist, and it will fall into place. Next, we secure it with our pretty much only snap ring in the case itself. And you do not want the snap ring touching that case saver or the spring clip. My technique, I slide it in there with my thumb, make sure it's pretty much right on the money. I help keep it in position with my other hand while I push the rest down. And that is the absolute perfect snap ring install. Just don't let it touch it. At this point, you should turn the unit and double check that your clearance is not too tight on your reverse clutches. There should be roughly about the thickness of a steel, which is roughly 60 to 70 thousandths, I believe, if you were really going to measure, and if you're using metrics and you're too afraid of fractions and freedom.
That they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom!
Otherwise, it's about 1/8 of an inch. The next piece, and another little modification, is a double bushing cut down, which is what I've done here on a lathe, or a Sonax wide bushing. I like my double bushing. Wide bushing is fine. That goes right in there. This is the transmission's actual center support. Just a little grease on your bushings kind of helps. Next will be our bumper washer for our Sunshell. And the Sunshell is going to be your problem child in the hard parts area. This bad boy, this is a late model, designed for a bearing only, so be mindful of that when purchasing these. This is a little bit better than the old one, just because of the extra meat, and they got smart about it. These like to break right here, and you will lose second, fourth, and reverse. No bueno. Easily corrected by an aftermarket part called the Beast Sunshell. It is a great option. You will not break it. We use it in very high powered units. But a late model Sunshell, if you're at home or just have a late model unit, usually these are great. So if you've lost second, fourth, and reverse, you might have stripped your Sunshell. That should just slide in there right on top of that sun gear. Beautiful. Reaction tube, front ring gear. Next piece. Pretty strong piece, not a whole lot of problems with it. 2 bushings, inspect your teeth, you know, everything should be in pretty good shape. There shouldn't be a lot of clack back and forth. If there is, these do wear inside, so be mindful of that. Readily available. This primarily drives third gear, or third clutch drives it. There's that squeak of that low roller, but as you can see so far, everything turns absolutely beautifully. Same as our rear planet, our front planet. We want to inspect our journals. We want to have a little space, but not too much, just like this. Inspect your teeth. You don't want to see any cracks or anything like that. These are casts. We actually use these all the way up to 700 wheel horsepower at 4,000 pounds. They do handle it very well, so there's no reason to not put these back in your unit rather than springing the big bucks for the 5 pinions. Black bearing, that's your other bearing, and it goes on just like so. And you're just going to twist and pop that down in there. Now, this is the part where I told you the bungee strap would come into play. My cameraman's hands are full, and so are mine. We gotta put this output shaft in. This is a 2-wheel drive, and we've cleaned it up a little bit. They usually don't look this nice. What we're gonna do is slide it up through the bottom. And you most likely will have to do what I have to do. Grab a metal hammer and gently till you hear a pop. I apologize, I know that was loud, but we're in a tiny, tiny room. The acoustics are a lot in here. Trust me, that's how I feel. Now, mine's not held in there right now that great, so what I'm doing is I put a bungee strap in that little pinhole at the bottom that they use to machine it, wrap it around your hook, and stick it in a bolt hole. And that keeps your hands free because that is a tight fit for the snap ring. There is a right way to put the snap ring on. The closed part should go up towards you. The wide part should go down towards the bearing. Simply place it there, spread. Don't tell me I am going to struggle with this one too. Okay, that's a little bit easier. Don't gotta be cramped with the cameraman. It sinks in just like so. If you have not done your bushings right, or have pushed up too far, knocked the bearing out of place, that will absolutely not go on. So if you can't get that snap ring on, you've done something wrong. As always, we check our action. The unit's very dry, but we give it a spin. And everything locks and free spins as it should with minimal effort. Now we move on to installing the input and reverse input drums. What you want to do, putting these drums in, is essentially place one on top of the other and just spin and shake them together. And you'll know when it goes down. It'll actually contact the bearing, even though when it's installed in the unit, the Sunshell pushes the reverse input drum up and it doesn't actually contact that bearing the OEM way as it should. That's why I flip it. That is your preference. I don't want to argue what's right or wrong, but it definitely works and it works well. Your sprag gear, mine's attached. Common mistake, people put it in and they have an unattached sprag. Put the sprag gear in first if you have one of those. Mine's in there. We're simply going to pick the drum up and gently place it in the unit. One thing I want to talk about real quick before I get into shaking this drum in. I think I've literally had probably 78 "why don't you soak your clutch packs?" I will answer it for you one time. I don't soak them because it's a myth. It's not important. That fluid pumps through there so fast in neutral as you're initially filling the system that it's going to soak them faster than you ever could. Not only that, what I do recommend everyone do, after filling, let the vehicle sit overnight. Not only does it burp air out of the system, it gives those clutches time to soak even more. Plus it makes it easier to drop in. Try dropping in a wet clutch. Trust me, this is way easier. So, this is my homemade tool. 2 vice grips and a rag will work too. Just be careful on your splines. Do not grab the journal. We just shake, rock. We don't want to put downward force on it. We actually want to put upward force on it when we're shaking it, okay? So maybe think of your hands as open and do this if you have one of these. You will know when it goes down, you will hear it drop. You can always pick it up and hear it right up against that shaft. The drum should also be a little lower than your pump gasket land. That is the drum install, and it's very simple as that. The next piece we put in is the band, and we're going to talk about the servo assembly. Now, we take our OEM band, we have our band pin lug and our case lugs. Very simple. We want to slip the band lug in first. And this is where I said a screwdriver would come in handy, so I will reach around myself. Because this band is very springy and it will want to get away from you. We put the case pin through the hole in the valve body. Big round hole, can't miss it. We want to push this back and just basically smack it down in there. Past this little tab. Just work it back and forth with your finger and it should go down fairly easily. A danger with this band, I prefer wide ones if you are, it's much easier actually. This band likes to sag in the back. Try to keep it up because that will affect your band clearance and give you a false reading. So right now we're going to go back to the desk, assemble our servo, and then we're going to put the unit in, drop in our pump and valve body after I grease up our servo board, and finish the video. And I hope you guys have success in building this unit yourself. I really hope you do. Yeah, a little too into that there.